It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Sports Illustrated publisher, Kade Kistner. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Brandon?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started and working in sports?
I feel like for a lot of people, it's kind of the dream, right? You grow up watching your favorite teams, and you think, okay, hey, maybe I can't be a professional athlete, right? So, how can I work in sports, right? So I think that my dream started out like a lot of other people's, right? And that's I wanted to be involved in something that I was passionate about, and that a lot of other people are passionate about.
Of course, what was your experience like going to Tulane to study sports media?
So I actually didn't study sports media at Tulane. I study Latin American studies with a minor in Spanish, actually. And I love going to Tulane and going to New Orleans, and it was an incredible experience. Great school, and great academics, and you have Mardi Gras down there, and the amazing culture of New Orleans when you get outside of that Tulane bubble, and yeah, just a fantastic experience.
Of course, after Tulane, what was it like getting into sports and covering sports?
Yeah, so I have kind of a weird journey with it because as soon as I graduated from Tulane, I went into the Navy as an officer, and then I became a pilot in the Navy. So I went from yeah, I didn't actually go directly into sports. So I flew airplanes before that. So but yeah, it was but during that time, right, I had a little bit of time in the Navy. And so throughout my college career, I was uh writing and interning for different different outlets, and I continued to do that all the way through college, all the way through the Navy. And then as I was starting to get out of the Navy, that's when I started to look at, hey, this is something I want to do full time. So I was able to get in with Sports Illustrated and get into sports media that way.
Of course, after serving the country in the Navy, what was it like getting into sports and first working for the Sports Illustrator?
Yeah, so it obviously it's a really big change, right? You go from leading, young men and women, right? You go from taking, orders from your commanding officer, the command and structure of that, uh, um, all that type of stuff, right? And then you go into a completely different realm where there's actually not a ton of veterans, right? There's not a ton of people that kind of understand what you've done. A lot of people are just career journalists, right. They go to college, they do some journalism classes, they get their degree, and then they go and they start working for a newspaper and outlet, right? So it was definitely a really big change for me to kind of have to switch my mentality, and almost in a way, even though I had this very unique skill set of flying airplanes, or leading young men and women as an officer. You come into this completely new industry almost at a little bit older age than a lot of the people that have done it, and they don't care where you came from or what you do. They just see you as kind of this new guy, right? And so it was just a really big change for me to kind of have to adapt to the new environment. But it all worked out, and I wouldn't have done it any other way. So.
Of course, what was your experience like getting to work with the USA Today covering sports?
Yeah, so USAA, that's who I worked for, or I interned for, when I was in college, and so I was at Tulane, so that's in New Orleans, and so for USAA, that was kind of one of my first jobs or internships, and I was actually covering the New Orleans Saints, the NFL team. So I covered that all the way through college, and then after I commissioned into the Navy, I still would write for USA Today's Saints coverage um, throughout flight school and things like that. And it was great. I gained a mentor there who I still work with, work with quite a bit and ask for advice. Even though I don't work in football anymore, I work in baseball, but he's still someone that I really lean on, right? Um, and so that was a great opportunity, and that was kind of my launching point for my sports career was getting that internship with USA Today.
What was that experience like for you to get to work in football and cover the New Orleans Saints?
I loved it. So I grew up a New Orleans Saints fan, right? My stepdad, who kind of acted as my dad from a very early age, was from New Orleans. So I grew up, even though I grew up in Texas, I grew up a Saints fan. Um, and they won the Super Bowl my freshman year of high school in 2009. And so being able, that's actually a big reason I went to Tulane, right? Was because I wanted to be close to the Saints. I wanted to go watch them every Sunday. But then getting to cover them for USA Today was a dream come true. And obviously, you have to put your journalist hat on, right? Whenever you're doing that, you have to kind of take the bias out of it a little bit. But still, getting to go to the Superdome and cover the team and be there every Sunday and have your opinion heard. Everyone has an opinion, right? But on their favorite team, but to be someone that people would read your opinion was pretty cool, right? That's one thing that I thought that was probably the neatest part of the job is that I got to have a voice about my favorite team.
Of course, during that time, what was that like getting to cover Drew Brees during his career as a Saint?
Oh man, yeah, that was an experience of a lifetime. Uh, Drew Brees he was my hero growing up. He came to New Orleans in 2006, which I really only can remember starting to watch football back in like 2002, 2003. The Saints were not very good. Katrina happened, and then you have Drew Brees and Sean Payton that came in 2006, and yeah, that dynasty, that point in the franchise, was just incredible. And Drew's an amazing human being, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And the way that he just pulled that city together, and there was just so much passion, and everyone had one thing to rally around. It was unlike anything I've ever seen in my life, and still to this day, I cannot replicate the way that the fans in the city of New Orleans kind of um, gathered together to support that team and to support Drew and to support Sean Payton and what they were doing, and to be able to cover that, especially being able to cover it in the twilight of Breeze's career, uh, it was an honor, honestly.
After your time working for the USA Today, what was it like getting to come to Sports Illustrated to become their publisher?
Yeah, so I left USA Today back in 2000 and 19, and then I did the same thing I did for USA Today, but I started doing it for Sports Illustrated. But I was just a writer, right? But I was covering all kinds of different teams, everything from the Dallas Mavericks, the Dallas Cowboys, Houston Texans, Texas Rangers, even like the Chelsea Football Club and the English Premier League, Celtic, FC and the Scottish Premier League. So soccer, baseball, football, basketball. Was kind of doing it all with that side at the time, and that was really cool. And I was actually still in the Navy when I was doing that. But I was getting towards the end of my career in the Navy, and I knew that I was going to want to get out. So I started to ask myself, hey, how do I start doing this full time? And that's when a publisher position came open with Sports Illustrated.
Of course, what was that experience like getting to cover the Dallas Cowboys during that time, also being in the Navy?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It that was definitely more of a you put your journalist hat on again, but this time it's not because you're covering your favorite team and you have to try and be as unbiased as you can. But this time it was because I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan, right? But that was I was getting paid to cover them, right? So, and you have to cover them fairly, just like every team that you cover, whether you personally like them or personally you're a fan or not, right? You have to cover every team fairly. That's part of the job. So yeah, but it was another really cool deal. Focusing on flying airplanes, and then in your spare time, like getting to write about these massive sports teams, right? Like the Dallas Cowboys. So it was again unique experience that I think really helped shape my career and like where I'm at now and where I'm going.
Of course, how did covering football help you into where you are now covering baseball?
Yeah, so so we talked a lot about football, right? But now I cover only baseball. But there's you know, I, when I grew up, right, I was a big football fan, but I was an even bigger baseball fan. But the baseball landscape, it's a little bit smaller than the football media landscape, and so there's less opportunity, right? So you kind of have to bide your time. Um, and if you're a sports writer and you're a good sports writer, you should be able to kind of, uh, make the transition from one to the other if you're knowledgeable about the sports. Um, so, as far as writing about football and how it translates to my baseball experience, I would just say it was just about getting those bylines underneath me, just constantly writing, getting a good flow going, learning the ins and outs of how to cover a professional sports team, knowing how to talk to sources, knowing how to cultivate relationships, and that all translates from one sport to another.
Of course, in baseball, what are some of the teams that you cover now in baseball?
Yeah, so I am covering almost all of them, right? But I really focus on the Phillies, the Cubs, the Astros, the Yankees, the Mets. I dabble with the Texas Rangers, the Red Sox, the Cardinals, and then we're also about to launch another property where we're going to be covering all 30 Major League Baseball teams. So I cover it all, including their minor league systems.
Of course, what is that experience like getting to cover these popular MLB teams such as the Yankees?
Yeah, so it's really cool. Actually, probably the best experience I ever had was I got to follow the Philadelphia Phillies around last year during their postseason run. So I went to every single Phillies game during their postseason run, all the way through the World Series against the Astros. So that was really cool. And getting to have that and sit in the press box and talk to the players and go into the clubhouse and go on the field. After they won the National League Championship Series, getting to go on the field. After the Astros won the World Series and all the fans were there. It was a really, really cool experience. Unlike anything that I've ever, got to do. But as far as like covering, I mean, they're all big, right? But same thing with the Yankees, right? It's just to me, it's just another baseball team. It doesn't matter what the name is.
Of course, how is that like obviously getting to cover these baseball teams and having this media credentials and this access to the players?
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, right? Like you have to be professional. You have to know how to conduct yourself around other people and around these guys, right? You can't be starstruck. Okay, so when you have that credential, it comes with a lot of responsibility and professionalism. And again, I credit my time in the Navy as an officer, right, with that. Just knowing how to deal with people, knowing how to be a consummate professional every single minute of every single day. And that's an experience that I'm really glad that I got to have, in the Navy because, you can see a lot of young kids. I say kids, but a lot of young people, right? They're coming straight out of college and getting put on these professional sports beats, right? And sometimes they're not finding as much success as they want to because um, they uh, they get starstruck, but they don't really know how to handle themselves. It's an experience that they've never had to deal with before. Um, so for me, like whenever I was in the Navy, I had a tour around the Prime Minister of Norway, and the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of the Navy, and met the Vice President, right? So when you meet a baseball player, it's like, okay, I've done this before on a bigger scale, right? I know how to be professional around them. So yeah, but that credential comes responsibility and the expectation that you're going to be professional.
Of course, how is that like obviously getting to cover these major league teams, affiliates that are in the minor leagues?
So the minor league stuff is a lot of fun to cover, because there's a lot of great stories down there, and there's not a ton of media coverage. There's a couple guys and girls, right, that are dedicated to covering these minor league teams, but um, they're not getting a ton of exposure, right? So when we have a really big platform like an SI.com, where we can do consistent quality content on these minor league teams, especially the players, right? They're not getting paid a whole lot of money. They're working, during the season, they're working, 100 hours a week and travel and things like that. Being able to get to tell their story is a lot of fun. Plus, our fans and our readers and our viewers, right? They love to hear about, hey, who's the next big thing? Who's the next big star, right? And it makes them sound smart. It makes them a more well-rounded fan. Um, and so that content does really well. But again, it's pretty special for us to have for us to be able to do that and to kind of shed light on the minor leagues.
What would you tell your younger self looking back on your career as a Sports Illustrated publisher?
Oh man, that's a good question. What would I tell my younger self? I would say find the right people, right, to work with, right? So, I do writing. I write every day, but the majority of the things that I publish and I edit come from my writers that work for me, and we collaborate and we work well, and we have a really good team that we've built now. But it took a while to get there, and there were some ups and downs in that, and there was some learning curve to finding the right people. So I would say probably try and find the right people as quick as you possibly can, and make sure that you've got your criteria specifically laid out for exactly who you want to hire, because who you work with makes all the difference.
Of course, for my listeners that are listening, looking to get into being a publisher like you for Sports Illustrated, what are some of the things that they need to do?
Yeah. So, I would say the big thing is to never turn down an opportunity, right? And know your worth. Okay. So when I started writing, I started with like SB Nation. I worked for free, right? But it was an opportunity for me to write about sports and to get it published online and for people to read it and have a byline, right? And that opportunity turned into a USA Today internship, right? Where I wasn't really making any money. But again, you get that USA Today byline. It was an opportunity. And then that turned into Sports Illustrated, right? And then that, as a Sports Illustrated writer, and you get your foot in the door. And now, I'm a publisher leading a team of like 10 people and covering all of baseball and all these opportunities and all these great things, right? But um, the big thing is that I never turn down an opportunity, or at least I always listen to it, right? And just know who you are and what you're worth. I think a lot of people who want to work in sports, they want to go straight to the top, right? Immediately, or in sports media or journalism, right? They want to go work for the big newspaper, or they want to go work for the big outlet right away. Um, and that's not always possible. This is an extremely competitive industry, extremely competitive, with not a ton of opportunities, and there's a lot of people that want these opportunities. So the earlier you start, and the earlier you start taking every opportunity you can, uh, that just sets you up in the future for what you want to ultimately do.
What are some of your roles and responsibility as a publisher for Sports Illustrated?
Yep. So, my number one thing, right, as a publisher is to publish. So, what I do is I look at all the things that my writers are giving to me. They submit a story, I'll edit it, I'll look at it for content, making sure that we have the correct citations and quotes, making sure that it's good quality stuff, making sure that there's journalistic integrity in it. So, I'm an editor, right, as well. So then we publish it. I also write. I do social media. We do podcasting. So I'm making sure I'm leading that. And then on a daily basis, right, I'm managing and I'm leading, men and women as they create content, and making sure that we have all that scheduled out, making sure that we have a content schedule as well, content creation ideas, brainstorming, And then on top of that too, like how it operates for me is that I'm in charge of, my employees' payroll. So I'm also an accountant at the end of the month, right? Um, and I'm also HR, so I deal with any issues, personal issues that my employees might have. So it's like leading a small business where you're the small business owner. You do everything. And if we had a bathroom, I probably would be cleaning the bathroom too. So just we do everything. I do everything, as a publisher. So that's my roles and responsibilities. And that's how it is for every SI publisher.
Of course, what is that feeling like as a publisher to get to see your work being broadcast online, but not only online, but in magazines?
Yeah, so our magazine is kind of legacy, right? So the majority of all of our work now is moved online. But it's still really cool to be able to see your work, right? Again, I mentioned it kind of at the beginning of this interview where um you get to be a person that your opinion is shared to millions of readers and viewers every month. Um, and So that's pretty cool, right? And it doesn't mean that maybe, I mean, we should know more. If you cover the team intimately, you're at the games, you're talking to players, you know the team more intimately than the general fan, right? But there's a lot of smart people out there with a lot of really, really great opinions. And so to kind of be one of those people, but you get to, have your stuff read and your opinion holds a little bit more water. Um, yeah, it's a really really neat experience, but it's also a responsibility, right? So you have a responsibility to make sure that what you're putting out there is true and it's factual, and it means something. So that's a responsibility that comes with having that widely spread opinion.
What are some of your favorite memories and moments being a Sports Illustrated publisher?
Yeah, like I said, probably when the Phillies won the National League Championship Series, and I went down there during their onto the field during their trophy ceremony, speaking with their owner, John Middleton, getting to see them hoist the trophy with 50,000 fans in the stands, all screaming, getting to be down there as part of that celebration with them, covering the World Series is really cool. That was really really neat. Opening day this year, I was covering the Texas Rangers and Philadelphia Phillies at the Rangers' new stadium, Globe Life Field. So being there for opening day and a sold out crowd, um, I would say that those are probably my top memories. And they've all happened within the last probably 9 months. So it's been a really cool ride recently.
Of course, what are some of the things that you do to help balance being a sports publisher but life outside of sports?
Yeah. So that's important, right? Because especially with baseball, right? It's 162 games a year, and every team, and so from the start of spring training, mid-February, pitchers and catchers report until the last pitch is thrown in the World Series. It's 7 days a week, like 24/7. And even then you got free agency and trades and things like that in the wintertime, right? So it's you're constantly working. You're constantly on your phone. You're constantly on Twitter. You're constantly talking to people. You're constantly coming up with content creation, right? So for me, it's important, right, that I delegate. I delegate authority, but not responsibility, right? Delegate authority to my writers and to my editors, right? And give them my trust that I know that if I need to step away, that they can handle the job, and they do, right? That's a part of, what would I tell my younger self, right? Find the right employees, right, that you can trust, because it does allow you to take some time off. Like right now, I'm on vacation, but I'm still talking to you, right? So there's a fine line between, figuring out, yeah, how to have a good work life balance, and it's really good for mental health too, because between all the work and all the travel, um, and all the people saying mean things about you online or all the mean things people say about you on social media, right? You have to learn how to block all that out. Mental health can take a hit. So, what I like to do is I go for runs in the morning, do some yoga, I try and meditate. I try and, maybe take a day off during the week if it's really busy time of year, maybe take a half a day off during the week or something like that, right? And I just spin it for me, work out. Maybe I go to a game as a fan, right? And sit there and have a hot dog with my friends while watching baseball. So kind of two birds, one stone. Yeah, that kind of stuff. You just have to kind of get creative with it.
Of course, what are some of your future plans as a Sports Illustrated publisher?
Yeah, so one thing we're working on right now, I alluded to it, is this national baseball site. So me and two other Sports Illustrated publishers, Gary Lee and Scott Neville, um, we we're in the works of launching a national baseball site that we will own. It's called Baseball Essential. We'll cover all 30 MLB teams. Um, and however, even though we own it, SI is wanting us to um, have them post it, right? So it won't be SI branded, but we'll have their we'll be underneath their Sports Illustrated Media Group umbrella. So that's kind of the next big step is going from individual team coverage to a national level coverage that we're hoping to launch in July.
Of course, what advice would you give those people that are looking to work in professional sports?
Yeah, hard work. It takes so much. It's work ethic, right? Um, it's uh, it's carrying your laptop with you when you go to birthday parties or you go to dinner, right? Or your iPad with you. It's about knowing that when you're on vacation, you're never really on vacation. Um, it's about dedication to the craft, right? Um, and again, never saying no to an opportunity. And what I mean by that again is always listen. When someone comes to you with an opportunity, always listen to it before saying no. Let me put it that way. But yeah, it's a lot of hard work and it's not glamorous. A lot of people think it's glamorous and it really isn't. Um, but and you have to have a true passion for it. But if you have a true passion for it and you work really hard, you're gonna find success, and that is what's fun. That's what makes it fun.
What advice would you give people looking to become a publisher for a company like Sports Illustrated?
Yeah, same thing. Like you just take all the opportunities you can get, just like I did. SB Nation, USA Today, writers, internship, like whatever you have to do, get your bylines, right? Get as many bylines as you can. Um, be able to take constructive criticism. If you can't do that, then you're never going to learn. And it also means that your skin is probably not thick enough to work in this industry. So be open to constructive criticism. Don't think you know everything. Listen to others that have done this a lot longer than you have, and always listen to every opportunity that comes your way.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Kade Kistner, Kade Kistner, Kistner. Super simple, just first name, last name. And then, yeah, so that's the best way to reach me is on Twitter. And then from there, you'll have all my websites and my email. So you can send me hate mail or love mail, whatever you want to do. And you can see all of my stuff and my adventures on there.
Thank you again, Kate Kistner, for your interview, and best luck in your future as a Sports Illustrated publisher.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Kate Kistner, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.